Hi everybody. Hi,
Hey
how
Sam,
are
how are you doing?
Noswaith dda. Dwi'n hapus
Noswaith
to meet. Welcome to our little Panad with Sam. Do you like my mug?
Very nice. I'm on the water.
Oh, that's good. I've got my Welsh
Me
Labour
too.
mug here. It's great to see you all on International Women's Day 2021. It's great to see you. So obviously today we're meeting up just to discuss the different issues that are facing us as women today. Just to introduce myself, I'm Sam Egelstaff, the Welsh Labour Senedd candidate for Ynys Môn. So I'm really honoured and proud to be in that position, hopefully striving forward and pushing forward for equal rights and a fairer world and building back much fairer for Ynys Môn. So I'm just going to ask you all just to introduce yourselves tonight. So who've we got here? Elaine?
Hello, I'm Elaine Ellen, and I'm a member of the Labour Party on Ynys Môn. Also, I'm a member of Unite Community, so work a lot around things like universal credit.
And Lindsay? Hi, Lindsay.
Hey Sam, so I'm Lindsay Lynch. I'm a member of the Anglesey CLP Labour Party and I have been since 2019. And I have recently decided to stand for our May Ynys Môn County Council elections.
That's great. Well done. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
And we've got Joy as well. Hi, Joy.
Hi, Joy Rose here. I'm a recent member of Anglesey Labour Party, but dead keen to get involved.
That's brilliant. Oh, well, thanks everybody for coming and having a chat today. It's wonderful that we've got the chance to discuss the topic for this year, actually. So International Women's Days have been going on for a while now. I was really lucky to work with a team in Conway with the late Bill Chapman, who was the chair of Aberconwy CLP, to light Conway Castle purple in 2008 to celebrate International Women's Day. And we invited the Women's Institute to the town hall, and we invited the WASPy women who are fighting for pension justice. Because they lost so much money through their pensions, and it was so fabulous to see the castle lit purple, which is the colour that the suffragettes adopted in their rosettes, wasn't it? Right, if we did something like that with Beaumaris Castle in the future, wouldn't it? I can see that happening, definitely. So the topic for this year is choose to challenge. So there's a hashtag on Twitter going around, hashtag choose to challenge. It's quite a wide topic, actually. So I just thought we could maybe have a chat about what do we think that we need to challenge today as women then in society? What do we think? Elaine, have you got any ideas?
Yeah, I think that on this International Women's Day, we're at a time when we're still going through the pandemic. Before that, we've had 10 years of austerity, of public spending cuts. So it's been quite a hard time, I think, for most of the people on Anglesey, certainly ordinary families, but women in particular. I've got some statistics just before the pandemic. We looked to see what the gap was between women's wages and men's wages on the island, and we found it was 25%. Also in Wales, we found that 80% of women did part-time jobs, mainly in low-paid occupations. So all of that, those figures came from the middle of 2019. Since then, and I'm thinking especially of the budget last Wednesday, it's shown that women have been particularly hard hit by the pandemic, and the budget hasn't really done anything to help with that. So I got some, again, just a few more figures just to show you that it's women have lost their jobs where they've been outside the home working in things like hospitality, retail, and some caring roles. The care sector. But women have also been, of course, in the home. Women have been the ones who have been day to day homeschooling, which I'm sure is really, really on a day to day basis must be so hard. Homeschooling, you know, managing. Is there enough to eat? Do we need to go to the food bank or ring the food bank? And of course, we're now into a time when we'll be looking at things like people worrying about rent arrears. So just a few more figures from the budget. This idea that women have been hit really hard, and those working families who are on universal credit, at the beginning of the pandemic, the UK government gave this £20, what they called an uplift. Some of us think it was actually an attempt to make it livable, make universal credit livable. This is going to be taken away, what many of us see as a cliff edge in September, at a time when unemployment will start rising again. Women, because they work in those sectors like retail, hospitality, they might see their furlough end. They will see their furlough end, but they might not have jobs to go to anyway. It's reckoned that that is going to affect 500,000 more people in poverty, 200,000 of them children. And of course, on the island, that's a major concern, I think, well, for all of us. But again, you know, if you're a mum, if you're a nine, poverty, children in poverty is pretty awful in 2021 in the sixth richest country in the world. So there's some of the things I'd mention.
Thank you, Elaine. I think child poverty in particular is an absolute stain on our society. It really is. It's shocking. And also when we look at the poverty and with COVID, it really has shone a spotlight on inequality and people that have been the worst off, which quite often are women, particularly working in part-time jobs, have to pay high amounts of childcare, and they're underpaid with the pay gap. I mean, you're looking at pretty much across all sectors, women are paid less than men just because they're women. So they do the same job as men, but because they've got a uterus and because they've got children, it is perceived that, oh, well, they're not as good, even though their outcomes are the same. So in caring, they're paid 8% less. These are current statistics, 2020. In processing, plant machinery, any kind of production line, they're paid 15% less, just because they tick the F in a box instead of an M in a box. In skilled trades, they're paid 20% less. You know, it's just out of order. It breaks so many laws in terms of the Equality Act. That discrimination, that gender discrimination, it's got to end. So what's happened is, you're right with what you're saying, that when universal credit, that support stops, because a lot of women have to claim it because they're on such poor wages, it's going to create, you know, terrible suffering and poverty. And the Trussell Trust has actually said that food bank use has gone up during the pandemic 750%. You know, if we didn't have such wonderful volunteers and people donating food, I dread to think how bad the situation could be. It's awful, isn't it? So initially, we were thinking, what do we need to challenge in society today? We need better wages for women. We need to close the gender pay gap. We need less discrimination in the workplace. And we need to have much better outcomes and better treatment in the workplace, and that'll have a knock-on effect, won't it? And a fairer benefit structure as well. I mean, the fact that we've had women in Parliament has given us things like child benefit, hasn't it? And maternity pay and things like that, but it's still not good enough, is it?
Yeah.
We do need more.
And also, Sam, I think we haven't mentioned how there was nothing in the budget about a social care system, and we were told that Boris Johnson had a social care plan. It was ready, it was done back before, at the time of the 2019 election, and that will really impact on women as carers, and as those who live longer as well. So that is a huge one. And I've heard today a number of women Labour MPs in the UK Parliament talking about what a terrible omission that is, as is this measure that the Tory government say they want to give for women's aid. They announced it as if it was wonderful and said 19 million we're giving to support women's aid because we've had so much more domestic abuse during the pandemic. Women's Aid has come back today and said, well, we don't know about 19 million. We've worked it out as 393 million is what we need. So, there are so many challenges.
I mean, that scale of abuse is quite shocking, isn't it? I mean, just talking about social care, I put forward a motion a couple of years ago to end call clipping in the social care sector, so that it's predominantly women workers who work in social care. And what was happening is, because of the privatisation of social care, private companies, they weren't getting the full hour of their wages. They were only being told they could do a full care visit with everything that entails, to just last 15 minutes or half an hour, so that the private firms could keep 30 minutes of the amount they were getting paid. So I did a speech on that, and that was prevented. That went through. So we have put measures in place. But again, I mean, what that links back to is that in-work poverty, isn't it? Having really poor wages. We need a real living wage that pays for food and pays for our rising utility bills due to fat cats making profit. We deserve to have a decent standard of living, don't we? We'll move on anyway, because it's so complex, isn't it? All of these different issues, how can we challenge these issues that prevent women from having a decent run at life? What things can we do to help pave the way for a better life, better outcome for women in the future? Joy, have you got any ideas with that one?
Well, yes, a lot. Because it's not a coincidence that the care workers who were neglected in the budget are predominantly female. And interestingly enough, at the other end of the spectrum, the vast pay gap between women and men revealed at the BBC. Closer analysis showed that the real cause of that pay gap was that women weren't actually promoted to senior positions. So now the BBC gets off the hook by paying more money to a small number of prominent women, when the real task is to get more women into similar roles to men, equal roles to men. And I'm a teacher, or I was a teacher before I retired, and I work with young people in the leadership position. And it's interesting that their understanding of what a leader is in a school. A leader is a deputy head or a head. And leaders don't have to behave like Margaret Thatcher or Priti Patel. There's different styles of leadership, different ways of working. And when I work with these young women, they settle for lower level roles when they could, because they doubt themselves. They don't recognize themselves as deputy heads and heads because they offer something different. They work sharing, collaborating, supporting. And so what we need to be looking at is how we can empower women and girls, help them, enabling them. Much more mentoring. I work in a mentoring role, and acknowledging the strengths and skills they've already got, and valuing that. And I've been really pleased to see women who doubt themselves. We actually talk about, why don't you see yourself as a leader? And it's because they worry about things, because they reflect on whether they're doing it right, whether they could do it better. They're not brash. They're not. And asking those questions shows that they are really thinking about what other people in their teams need. So it's about.
They do say, don't they, that there's a difference between men and women in the way that they lead. Men seem to be more competitive, whereas women are more cooperative. And seem to collaborate better. And we've seen that kind of leadership really be successful during this pandemic. I mean, if we look at Jacinda Ardern, is it, in New Zealand, really well with vast teams to close down the pandemic, the virus, very, very quickly. If we look at the leader of the European Union at the moment, they're women, and that's through putting in sort of positive discrimination processes where they take turns. It was a man last time, now it's a woman. And we have quite progressive countries, don't we, that have women leading, and it does make a difference. And that's exactly what you were talking about there, Joy, that we have these perceptions of leaders always being arrogant and brash and forthright and quite dogmatic, when there are lots of different ways to lead. And I think in the 21st century we need a much more empathetic, caring way of leading. It's not just about IQ, it's about EQ, the emotional quotient, and understanding people and what people need. That's what the people on Ynys Môn need. They need a leader that listens to them and actually cares and wants to, improve people's lives. It's just great what you do with the mentoring, Joy, in schools and helping women into leadership. I just applaud you so much. And I think thinking about mentoring and helping women's self-esteem is so important. Lindsay, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about your position and your job and the industry that you work in and how that really challenges gender stereotyping with work. Do you want to just explain what you do and what you found in your industry then?
Yeah, so I work on the railway network, and I think there's a couple of things to pick up from what Elaine was saying, and Joy as well. There's some great women out there that are kind of been working right through the pandemic. They're train managers, guards, they're train drivers, and they're going out there. Our local RMT union rep is female, and she's great, and she's been doing that, and she's been supporting men and women. We need male allies in this push forward for further equality. But I think the stretch for women, if you like, is that they are, when they're striving and they're reaching for these leadership and more prominent roles within the workplace, they've still got those home roles that they traditionally feel they need to maintain and keep on. They're still putting the washing out, now they're having to homeschool, so all of these things, and we forget. I think sometimes I've got a great group of nurses that are working locally in our ICU, and they're at their wits' end. They've got COVID has got to come to an end for those girls. But they're those guys, they're not only kind of homeschooling kids as well, saving people's lives. They're looking after older relatives that have had to shield. So there's a lot on women locally. You know, the guys that are out working, there's a lot on female teachers. They're teaching other people's kids. They're teaching their own. You know, so I think
know what it's like. I know what it's like. Yeah, there's so many professions that are just spinning plates, and I do feel like with women's rights, we've got more prominence in the workplace, although we don't have equal pay. We're not treated the same in the workplace, but it's almost like we've got 2 or 3 jobs, because we do our full-time job or a part-time job, then we get home and we've got all the domestic routines that we have to that we do. Luckily for me, I've got a great partner, and we all just muck in together, and you know, that's the ideal kind of home life, when you've got a couple of people to get on and do the job, and the children get involved and help out as well. That's fabulous. But you're right, what you spoke about there at the end, that on top of working full-time or part-time, looking after a home and the children, you've then got sometimes caring for ill or older relatives as well, haven't you? So the pressures of life are immense for women.
And I think we really need those male allies. You know, we can't push this forward by ourselves. We really need those guys to kind of like see, you know, we mentioned about looking through that female lens. It's not the guy's fault that they don't see the world how we do, or we don't experience the world how we experience it. You know, sometimes it's just a lack of understanding. So I think it's sharing our experiences and getting women up to those leadership roles however we need to, so the women that are more reluctant and don't feel it's for them can identify with other women that are up there and out there.
That's right. We do need men to help us in this path towards equality, so life isn't so difficult. And I work with young people every day, predominantly the future generations, you know, teenagers, young adults, people in their early 20s, and I have absolute faith that the future generation will make huge strides and make a big difference. You can see it when you're speaking to both young men and young women. You know, there's a much more acceptance of each other and supportive kind of attitude, and sometimes they're surprised that all of the things that we're still fighting for now haven't happened yet. So I have absolute faith in young people. You know, I know it's going to change. We'll move on anyway. So the other thing I wanted to just discuss was, have we had any success in challenging any issues that have been negatively affecting women so far? And you know, I'm really happy to say that yes, we have. You know, with our Welsh Labour government in Wales and Senedd, we have been the first country in the world to have a fully 50-50 gender equal parliament in the Senedd. I mean, that's quite fabulous. We couldn't have done it without an all-women shortlist. And, you know, sometimes we've had to push for change and have those positive discrimination processes in place. But, you know, we can be really proud with Welsh Labour for that. We've also had the introduction of 30 hours free childcare for 3 to 4 year olds when they go to Meithrin before reception, which has really helped families. Of course, we've been ending call clipping in social care. We've had, through the speeches that I've done in conference, and working with Jane Hutt, the then Equalities Minister, we had further commitments of 6.4 million altogether towards opening up new domestic abuse refuges to help people with disabilities to access a safe haven, and also period products, free period products in all schools and colleges across Wales to prevent girls, particularly from poorer families, from having to not go to school every month because they can't afford period products, which was so sad when I heard about that. You know, we think that period poverty is an issue in other countries, don't we?
Yeah.
To hear the scale of it happening here in Wales was just terrible, an abomination, really. So I'm really proud that through the work with our women's organisations and working together, we were able to push forward for that, and we had a pledge from the Welsh Labour government to end that. And it had a knock-on effect, you know, from what we did here in Wales, it changed the attitude in England, and the UK government announced it as well. So it's nationwide, it's in Scotland, which is fabulous. So I mean, we with the Welsh Labour and with our women's forum and we also work with women's organisations, and it's great how women can be empowered and work together. Elaine, you were saying something about some fabulous Welsh women's organisations that have really changed history. Do you want to just explain a little bit about that?
Yes, just to say that in the 1980s, I was working down in South Wales in Newport, and I used to go out. It's part of adult education, so we were getting students to come on. It was a trade union studies course, and I got to meet all these wonderful women. It was just after the miners' strike. They'd all been involved in Women Against Pit Closures, and from that, I think it built their sort of confidence so much, and they needed more. Lots of them got involved in Women's Aid. They got involved in, the ones I knew were very much involved in the Labour Party. They also came and did the Trade Union Studies course, and then went on to Pontypridd University. You know, did media studies, Cardiff. So that was great to see how you see women who've they built their confidence. Then I also remembered that also in the 1980s, you had the women from Greenham Common who it was the very first march. I don't know if you remember, or I know I'm probably a lot older. The missiles were sighted at Greenham Common, and it was the women from Wales who took the lead, marched all the way to Greenham Common. It's a flipping long way.
Fabulous. It's just a great story.
They're two groups that I think, because it's, yeah, women as individuals. We've got some great individuals, I think, within Labour. So a lovely woman, Beth Winter, Labour MP down in Cynnon Valley, who's very concerned about things like universal credit. I can think of Hannah Blythyn, in North Wales, really, really caring for the environment. I suppose if there was one woman I would like to mention, it's a young woman, and that's Greta Thunberg. You know, I don't think we touched on the climate crisis, which of course, you know, Extinction Rebellion, all those protest movements that we've seen, that are big, you know, they're very strong in Wales, and there's lots of women involved. So
there's so many women leaders now that I can think of that are really aspirational. I mean, what's quite interesting is that the first Welsh woman MP was for Ynys Môn, Megan Lloyd George, which is fabulous. And I saw something, I've been reading around the subject, and I cannot believe we haven't got a statue for her up in Ynys Môn. I mean, that, you know, she should
be believe it, honestly.
We need a statue. And then we've also got, you know, we've got women, like, if I look back from, you know, when they were negotiating the peace process, we've got Mo Molan, who was there around the table with all the men, you know, trying to negotiate and diplomise, and they weren't listening to her. And she was going through, I think, cancer treatment at the time. And she ended up pulling off her wig and slamming it on the table. And that shut them up completely. And she was like, you will listen to me. You know? There are some great figures. I mean, if we think about Diane Abbott, I mean, the first Black woman MP in Parliament, and the amount of abuse that she's put up with over the years. She is the most used on social media of any other MP. You know, people study the impact, you know, the range of bullying that she has to endure. And I've been very, very lucky to meet her when before delivering a speech at a national conference to try and save domestic violence from COVID. She helped plan towards that, and to try and change the law so that there's domestic violence leave in employment law for men and women. And she's just so determined and resilient. And although she's had all the abuse that she's had, you say the media is, she is just on this course, and she just wants to improve society and help the lives for everyone. And you know, you know, she's just amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm standing here this morning, is because for me, you know, there's that quest to try and improve people's lives, isn't there? That, you know, there's that sense of social injustice. Things aren't right and they have to be changed. And, you know, we're lucky of us that we all have the skills to be able to speak up for other people, isn't it? And help make that change. Lindsay, you're one of these women wanting to stand up and make a change. I've just heard some excellent news. Do you want to just fill us in with what your plans are?
So I've decided to stand as the Labour County Council candidate for the May elections coming up this year, which I tortured myself about doing this. I just wanted to, I don't like it being out there and, you know, people voting for me and stuff. It just makes me feel a bit cringy. But if women from working class backgrounds, you know, local, don't stand, then we're never going to get that throughput of other young women saying, oh, I know her. Oh, she's okay. Well, if she can do it, then maybe I can. You know, so I think, and, you know, it's so male dominated. There's 25 male councillors. I'm sure they do a fantastic job, but they don't, you know, there's only 3 other girls on that council, 3 women. So it's definitely not, we're 51% of the population of Ennismore. We're not represented. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go. see what that's all about.
Well done, Lindsay. Yeah, no, absolutely fabulous, and you'll have all our support. And you know, 100%. And we've got some great women and men in our political groups that can offer all their wise words and their knowledge. And I mean, that's what we need, you know. If we think about what more can we do, you know, the theme for International Women's Day 2021 is choose to challenge. And that's what you're doing, Lindsay, and that's what I'm doing, is we're challenging that stereotype that leaders are just men and that they have to look a certain way and act a certain way, you know. And there's something to be said for a more cooperative, collaborative way of doing things and getting things done. And if there's anything, you know, women need somebody to represent them who looks through their eyes. It's like what you said, through that lens. And if we haven't got people in that spectrum that considers that, then the laws are always going to be against women. The benefits, like you discussed at the beginning, and the budget, Elaine, is going to be against women, isn't it? So it's just really, really important. But I mean, it's just great to hear all your views tonight. It's been fabulous discussing this with you all, and I just hope that through us all being involved and sharing this today, that it might empower women to get a little more involved in in politics, whether it's reading about it or being more interested in it, because a lot of people that hear that, oh, I don't know about politics, or I don't understand what it means. But what it means in Wales is, if you vote in the Senedd, you are voting for education, your children's schools. You're choosing people that are going to make a difference and a decision on that. You're making a decision on housing, okay? You're making a decision on the environment, on the hospitals, on your GPs, whether you've got a dentist or not, all those different aspects, isn't it? And that's why women need to get involved. And hopefully when they watch this, they'll be more inclined to vote for me, Sam Egelstaff, for Welsh Labour and Ynys Môn. That would be fabulous. And
definitely,
you know, I would listen to them all and represent them and all the families and make a real difference moving on into the future. So thanks everybody this evening. Diolch yn fawr iawn. I've finished my cuppa. There's no more left, but I'm looking forward to the next chat, the next topic.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Sam.
Brilliant, Sam.
Good evening, noswaith dda.
Noswaith dda.